Hi, I'm Rachel Abbasi. Welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. As always, thanks for spending time with me. Hello. Today we are going to put to rest. I am going to put to rest my battle that I've been having with identity. I've mentioned a couple times lately, and I mentioned it yesterday about how I'm like, how is it that I'm rebuilding my identity when I'm still the same person? And like I get it that people, when they get sober, when they have a stroke, when they become disabled and all of that, like I get that we uh, have so much that changed, like so much that I personally really have struggled with regaining my sense of purpose and hope and being able to even envision a future for myself. Um, but I still was grappling, is that the word? With the idea of identity, losing my identity, rebuilding my identity. So I thought I really need to just talk about this and understand and probably all it took really was to look up the definition of identity. But I wanted to talk about, from my perspective, what that means for me in both sobriety, my entire thought process changes, my self-conception, like what I think about myself changes, and how other people see me changes also as I go through these different um, seasons of recovery in my life. And this is what I understand to be identity. So I just was confusing, I think, the little girl, like I mentioned yesterday, the little girl inside of me with my identity. But if I really like break it apart, which I'm going to do today, the way that I treat that concept of that little girl inside of me um, has changed over time. Um, Especially like I think the biggest change that I've seen internally is that I used to let that little girl inside of me still drive my emotions and my behaviors, my life. And once I got sober, it's like this new, I call it the new version of me, Rachel version 2.0. She's an adult. She is the mother of that little girl inside of me. And so that alone is a different self-conception. I don't know if that's the right word for it. What did I write it as earlier? Um, it is, sorry. Yeah, self-concept. And then also how others perceive me. So my self-concept, as I have worked the program and become emotionally sober, that has changed. And that equals identity. So, all of the confusing parts of emotional recovery, where all of that, yeah, the confusion, the uncertainty, all of that was really, once again, grappling with my identity, who I am, I was talking about yesterday in a sobriety meeting after I had my stroke, like I would walk into a room and be like, what am I doing? What is the point? What am I doing now? Like, oh, I wasn't at a sobriety meeting. I was in my vestibular support group meeting. And so I was relating it to my disability and feeling like, how do I manage this change inside of me? How do I manage um, such a dramatic change in my life, such a dramatic change in my abilities? And how do I respect and honor the emotions that I'm feeling in relation to that without turning it into depression or catastrophic thinking? Um, so my relationship with myself has changed enormously throughout sobriety and then even more uh, in stroke recovery. So I think that all along, how I've been talking about Rachel version 1.0 was drunk Rachel, Rachel version 2.0 was sober Rachel, and Rachel version 3.0 is post-stroke, disabled Rachel. I don't want to call it that, but I'm the post-stroke Rachel. And I think that those three versions of myself were really or have been identities that I have been working to understand. Um, it's more than just who I am. And I think that's what I was getting confused with when I think about identity, is that it's it's my relationship with who I am, how I see myself, how I how I think others see me, and unfortunately, how I want others to see me, and what I believe my value and my purpose is. Like all of that has changed. So I get now when I'm going back to look at or listen to Stroke Onward messaging about rebuilding identity, because, like, the definition of identity is that set of qualities, beliefs, personality traits, values, abilities, and social roles that define who we are. And all of that has changed for me. If I focus on stroke, on being disabled and having a stroke, that self-concept has changed once again enormously. And I've been learning how to change that self concept from, and working with a psychiatrist to do this, from feeling like I don't have purpose and I don't have as much value um, as I used to. Because this is like opposite of when I got sober. There's so many, like, as much as I talk about how parallel these recovery journeys have been, there are a few things that are opposite. So when I got sober, I was unable to recognize as much how I was changing until I was able to look back and see, well, that's what I used to be like, and look how much value I can add now. Look how much I can be of service, and I can look at my old driver's license and look at my new one and be like, man, you can see my recovery, physically. So imagine what the inside of me looks like. And, if I were to visualize the inside of me like a light, um, how dark I used to be and how bright I am now, that was a little difficult to see the change because it was so gradual from negative to positive. Now, in stroke recovery, it was an immediate change in my life. It was it was like all the lights were on, right, inside of me, and then they turned off, like the flick of a switch. That's what I felt like emotionally. That's how the story that I was telling myself happened. In the first, getting sober, it was gradual. When I had my stroke, it was like turning off the lights. I felt like I added so much value to the people around me. I felt good about myself. I felt positive. I had purpose. I feel like um, I could see a lot of value in myself. But when I had my stroke, it was like, what can I give now? There's all these things I can't do anymore that I can't even do for myself. How can I possibly do anything for other people? So that identity is internal in that way, but then the external side is then how do people perceive me? And um, when I think about how other people perceive me, I think about the physical side, like, and I had problems with that. I think I still do a little bit, how now I have to walk around with a hat and sunglasses when I leave the house, sometimes even in the house, and how I must come across very differently than I used to, where I always had my hair done. I, many of my bosses throughout the years since my 20s have said that um, I was always one of the employees that was always like done up and dressed professionally, I guess is the best way to put it. And so now to walk around with a hat on and these glasses on, um, it's like I feel like others are perceiving me very differently. And I feel like in that case that should I change on the inside to match what I look like, that I'm covering up? It makes me feel like I know that's not the answer. I know that I should not isolate, but that's what my external um appearance is now. It looks like I'm isolating myself. And I said something in one of my sobriety and in one of my early, actually, it was my second sobriety meeting in my neighborhood and in person. And I, for the second time, showed up in my glasses and my hat. And I started crying when I shared, and I said, because nobody would come up and talk to me. And I felt like people thought that I was, it's like if I walked into the room with my arms crossed, well, she doesn't look very approachable. That's what I feel like when I walk in the room with my hat. Because the hat I have to pull down really low so that I don't see any of the ceiling lights. And then I have on my dark glasses. So I felt like who I am, I was battling between who I believe I am and what other people must think I am. Like, how do others see me? I don't look like I had a stroke. I don't look like I have an addiction, and I don't necessarily look like I have a disability, but I do. But I am a stroke survivor. I am a recovering alcoholic, and I do have an invisible disability. So, as I continue to talk through this, I understand, I'm starting to understand. That's kind of the point here, is to understand how this all plays into the umbrella term identity, um, and how identity is not fixed. Identity is dynamic, and identity is like this living, evolving relationship with myself throughout life. And before a major life change, so before my stroke, my identity was built around productivity, independence, appearance, career, my physical abilities, and my achievements, and even like my caretaking roles as a mother. So this was un unconscious, subconsciously what my identity was built on. So when I had my stroke, and I remember standing in my kitchen, and my husband was sitting down on the couch, that was in off of the kitchen, and I had a folder from work. Like, I had already medically retired. It had only been maybe not even a week. I'm not sure, but we'll say it was a week. And one of my coworkers brought me back a folder that was in my drawer in my office, and it was full of my own personal notes on that role that I played at work. So, being a marketing director. And so I had notes from different kinds of like um, just marketing ideas that I had and stuff that I've worked through, not just at that job, but for jobs before that. Like, it's my folder. It's almost achievement folder or productivity folder. And so I'm standing in the kitchen, and my husband's sitting on the couch, and I'm going through this folder, and I'm thinking to myself, I can never work again. That's what I was thinking. I hadn't yet been approved for Social Security disability, and I had just been approved for long-term disability, but I didn't understand what that meant to my life. I was just trying to figure out what is happening right now. Like, my entire life is changing, and I am not in the driver's seat. My disability is, and I didn't know what to do. So I'm looking, sorry. Let me go back. So I'm looking through this folder, and I'm recognizing that, why do I need this folder anymore? Because I'm no longer going to be in marketing. Like I'm no longer going, I'm giving up my entire career. So I said to my husband as I'm making a pile of things that I'm gonna, uh, what do you call it? Shred. I feel like I'm throwing my entire life away. And he said to me, "You're looking at it all wrong. What your entire life, what you were building your entire life is all around you. It's not in that paper, it's not in that folder." And that changed everything for me. That was the beginning of rebuilding my identity. That was when I realized that I wasn't going to be able to successfully bring Rachel version 2.0 through stroke recovery, that I was going to need to rebuild, that my identity was going to need to be built around very different aspects because my identity changed. My, my abilities changed, I should say. So that's one thing. I can no longer even look at the computer back then, much less stay on it for any given time. I still can't even look at the screen for any long period of time, you know? So my abilities changed permanently. My energy, my excitability, my relationship with my energy changed. So when I get too excited, my symptoms act up. So when people come visit me, my symptoms flare enormously. And so my relationship with that energy, with those emotions, um, changed. I have to control myself. I have to not allow myself to get too worked up, or else I can't stay in whatever it is for the long haul. If it's a visit from somebody, like when somebody comes to visit me, I want to run down the driveway screaming and jump on them and hug them. That's me. I need to instead stand in front of my door and smile and wait for them to come to me and tell them I'm so happy that, like, I need to talk through the emotions rather than show them. So that makes my relationships change. And that makes my routines change. You know, my independence decreased because of more of what I can't do anymore. So that old self concept no longer fits. And there's a lot of grief that coincides with that realization that I've lost Rachel version 2.0. So I'm mourning myself while still being alive. Um, she hasn't disappeared, but I need to figure out how to bring forward the parts of Rachel version 2.0 that I can still celebrate and understand that the stuff that I can't bring forward, um, understand that it's okay and that I'm okay. I'm still the same. I still have the same memories. I still have the same experiences, the same humor. I still have the same love and that same little girl. But because of my new experiences, I have really more. I have to figure out how to apply those experiences to that understanding of who I am. It's very confusing. It's very confusing. And so I understand now how this Stanford professor that I was talking about yesterday, how one can specialize in this stuff because I'm both still myself, but I'm myself with new experiences. So I'm not becoming a completely different human being, but I'm developing a new relationship with me based on my limitations and my suffering and my thoughts about that suffering and my body, um, making decisions about, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can do this, you still like this, so you can do it, but you need to only do it for 10 minutes, a relationship with my emotions, how they respond to those limitations, and then how I respond to envisioning a new future for myself. So that organization stroke onward that emphasizes emotional recovery and rebuilding identity after stroke, I get it. I think I wasn't willing to admit that the lack of hope that I was experiencing after stroke and once in a while still do, that is a grieving process that is related to rebuilding identity. Um, so questioning why would I rebuild my identity when I'm still me, is really integrating what happened, my experiences into who I am becoming. It's also fluid. I'm not erasing who I used to be, but I'm learning how to carry the parts of my old self into a new reality and learning how to let go of the things that I can't bring forward. So I think a lot of my values are the same, but my priorities are very different now. Rachel version 2.0 did not necessarily put her health first, for sure. Like, I did put my health first as far as sobriety goes, but there was a lot of burning myself out, a lot of self-awareness, but that self-awareness was not so anchored in fear. I'm thinking like about the difference between like being 5 years sober and being 5 years post stroke. My fears about life are so much more magnified post stroke. And so my coping mechanisms that I used in sobriety at 5 years is are just a fraction of the coping mechanisms that I need now. So my recovery has changed. I still am honest about my feelings now, 5 years post stroke, but my feelings are more difficult. My willingness is more apparent to me. My relationships are more virtual than because I can't go to anyone. They have to come to me. My spirituality is has grown exponentially. And my relationship with my higher power has grown exponentially. I think my self-awareness has grown exponentially. Um, some of the character defects that were still very much alive before my stroke are no longer, I can't, I can't practice them, like impulsivity, for example. I simply can't be impulsive. I have to be more thoughtful about my actions because of my chronic pain. Like I am in survival mode like I've never been before in my life. The pause that I was introduced to in early sobriety and that I've grown to practice more and more over the past 10 years, that pause has taken on all new meaning for me. The pause today is necessary emotionally, spiritually, physically. Like I depend on it so much more. Um, the next right thing has taken on new meaning because sometimes today the next right thing, like when I was getting sober, the next right thing was typically an action, a physical action. Today, the next right thing is not an action. It's typically to rein in my movement. So there continues to be a lot of surrender, but it's more frequent surrender. Um, it's really, it's really fascinating to think through. I think that my integrity, my commitment to recovery has grown exponentially. Even though I never had an intention of picking up a drink, it's like I understand even more how much that life is not even possible if I wanted it. You know, it's I was I was underestimating the power of the program and that's a good thing that I just kept coming back because people told me to. When things were good and I didn't want to drink, I still kept going to meetings. Um, when COVID hit and I started going to virtual meetings on a daily basis, I had no idea what that was preparing me for a life of being more dependent on virtual meetings. So I think the emotional reality of rebuilding one's identity is that it can feel, that alone can feel like denial. Um, that might be what I've been doing by being like, no, I'm still me. I'm still me. As I've said, there's a lot of me that is still here, but there's so much of me that is different now. How do I speak to myself now? How do I trust myself now? How do I feel safe inside my own mind and body? After I had a stroke, I didn't even feel safe inside my own body. And I didn't feel like the program that I had developed for myself by going to sobriety meetings, that wasn't enough. I didn't believe I had the value that I used to have. So I needed to actually accept myself as I am today, as I was post-stroke. I needed to accept that my body's broken. My brain is broken. That's hard to say. Um, and then not for 2 years was I really starting to understand that I've got a permanent disability. And it even feels weird still today to say the word permanent because permanent feels like I'm giving up on getting better. And that's not what I'm doing. Um, I'm giving up on there being some sort of miracle solution to what I can't do anymore. Before recovery, there was a lot of different things were the basis of my decisions and my choices than they are now. And I think I heard somebody say this morning, I did actually, because I wrote it down. Let me see. Yeah, accepting hardship is the pathway to peace. Um, and I think that's what rebuilding our identity is, that reconstruction. And I rebuild that through slowly learning how to connect with myself. Um, if I isolate myself from others, though, that can also distort my identity. I need to stay connected. And that's where all of these recovery communities come in. Disability communities, strokes communities, support groups, all of this stuff. And a relationship with my psychiatrist is absolutely necessary as well. Like what others see in me tends to reinforce the strength and resilience that I'm working on, that muscle that I'm trying to build, the habits, the new habits, the wisdom that I'm trying to gain from my adversities, and the beauty that I'm able to see in myself. Because quite often in different recovery scenarios, others see beauty in us before we can. And it's ongoing. Identity rebuilding, I think, gosh, doesn't that mean that it happens for the rest of our lives? Like if I've already gone through version 1, 2, and 3, doesn't that mean as different events go on in our lives that my identity is evolving continuously. Like I can I can pinpoint moments where my identity pivots. Not that there's not additional grief, frustration, and fear, but there are pivotal moments that teach me or introduce me to a new understanding of my relationship with myself. The pivotal moments that it's obvious to me what I've lost or that I'm not who I was before. I can't, there's something about me that is gone. And there's something that I need to gain. With something that is lost, there's something that is gained. And I think that rebuilding the identity is where we're progressively gaining by adapting and surviving and practicing and becoming. Something that I just recently started hearing in my sobriety since I went to my peer recovery workshop and course is that I'm 100% successful at living because I'm still here. And I every day am becoming someone that I can live with and someone that I trust. I'm becoming someone that I trust, which is funny to think about. I'm becoming someone that I trust. I'm becoming someone that I understand. I'm becoming someone that I accept. I still belong to myself, no matter what changes within me. I'm never going to be the exact person I was before these pivotal moments, but that compassionate part of me continues to desire a very close relationship with me, with the person who I am now. And that's one of those traits that even that, when I think back, even that, I was always compassionate. I was always empathetic. I was always deeply moved by things. I mean, you name it. And so that little girl inside of me, like, that's one of those things that has never gone away. That's one of those things that lives from version to version. And there are many more things that live within me from version to version. And I think that's why it was so difficult for me to understand this idea of rebuilding identity. Um, but the identity part is the relationship that I'm having with all of those different assets that continue to live inside of me. So I will stop there. But I think this was very beneficial for me. So it had to have been beneficial for one other person in the world because I'm not unique. Thank you for joining me, and I will talk to you next time.